BBC4 did Animation Nation some years ago, and that covered all the early studios. But I mean, once a thing's done, they air it, a couple of times, and it's nobody ever gets to see it much again. So you have to keep going, and when there's no new material, because this is the problem, it's a closed archive, so there's nothing new. You can just rummage around and find lots of different things, because they did so much. They did education films that people don't get to see, sponsored films that you don't get to see, early TV entertainment films that nobody sees anymore. So
the Jackson 5 cartoon, for anyone a little bit older, was quite a big thing. The Lone Rangers. It wasn't just
Christoph done by Halas.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that.
Well,
so a lot
sublet. I mean, it wasn't really the studio. It was done by the studio, but it wasn't really Halas and Blatch.
Just commissioned. Did they?
They commissioned it like they did a lot of Asterix films, but they were, I don't know what you call it, commissioned.
Did Jim say something was similar with the Autobahn video? That was sort of sub.
No, Autobahn
was that actually?
No, Autobahn was done by the studio.
Okay.
It was done by the guy you could see talking, Roger Mainwood, and my father sort of saw his work and employed him on the spot and said, "Oh, get on with it," and that was really what he was good for, was giving people a chance. So some people were totally confused by my father, and they soon drifted away. But some people, it gave them a chance to do their own work in a way that really most studios wouldn't have let you do. So in that way, he was really good. In many ways, especially the people, Ginger Gibbons, for instance, who talks in a blue jumper, he was there in the 70s for a brief amount of time. By that time, my father was kind of dinosaur, and it was a long time since he'd ever animated anything himself. And as one critic said, Gianalberto Bendazzi, he said, "Well, what do you do? It's a tricky position in the animation world to be a producer, director, producer, because anything the studio makes isn't actually his work, it's somebody else's. And so what are you going to screen of that?" But I think, well, that's already not a bad thing to have done, because they trained lots of animators, there was always work there. It was an era when there was work, and people were assured a job, and they used it as a springboard. Lots of people went on to form their own things. People like Oscar Grillo worked there, Jeff Dunbar, Graham Rouse. Lots of people started off there, and he did co-productions with people like Bob.
Yeah.
And yes. So,
well, his last film was technically also a Bob film, wasn't it?
well, of course it was Bob's.
I should explain, Tom is the grandson of Bob Godfrey,
Yes.
who's a much loved... What?
I was also going to say, he does live on in Henry's Cat, because obviously you've got some Henry's Cat fans here. Cameron Barber is basically Bob doing an impression of John.
He's the rabbit, isn't he?
No, he's the evil goat.
Oh, right. Excellent. I should say, for
Not
those
evil, but yeah, he's got a very thick
Hungarian accent.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was another
Bob
thing.
always did.
Is that, yeah, my dad never lost his Hungarian accent. Never mind that he lived here from when he was about 27. He just never lost it, and he used it.
Just before your dad died.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember how I got this job.
Yeah.
I archived all the drawings, the remaining drawings of the Animal Farm.
Really?
Like half the film was gone. every day I meant to nick some actually, but I never did nick any.
Oh,
But
good, because we got most of them.
well, I put them all in order. They were all
Did
in
you?
like just in boxes. And
What, in the studio there?
No, I did them in his house with John,
Really?
and he was quite ill.
Yes, he
at
was
this
very
time.
yes.
And I'll tell you a story. if you
Yes,
don't mind
tell me.
telling
Oh,
you.
tell a story, yes.
He,
Look at the camera.
I mean, I didn't really have much to do with him. Only he was dying at the time. It was
Yes.
very shortly before he died.
Yes.
And he had a nurse there.
Mm-hmm.
And one day the nurse said, "Okay, John's having an afternoon sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go and get some milk or something. It'll be all right." So she went to get some milk. But he woke up, he came out and he saw the drawing. I can't do the accent.
Yeah.
He said, "I've just been having a wonderful conversation with my friend George." And I said, "Who?" He said, it must have reminded him, this George Orwell, the creator of Animal. And he didn't really know who I was, but he was just extremely friendly. We sat down and related this whole conversation that he had, I'm sure, because it was a detailed conversation about discussing how he was going to handle Animal Farm and with George Orwell.
Really?
And
Because
get it.
George Orwell was dead.
Yeah, George Orwell had been dead for 40 years, but he remembered.
No,
this.
but I mean when they made it.
Yeah,
And
but
they
he,
dealt with Sonia,
yeah.
George Orwell's widow. I don't think my father ever met George Orwell, so he must have been even more bonkers than we think.
Unless
He died in 40, was it 49 or
48, I think.
Yeah,
No,
48.
actually 50.
40?
I'll shut up.
But even so, I mean, how long was he working on developing?
They started the development in 51, and it was Louis de Rochemont who did this March of Time series for Time Life, and they had somehow got the rights from Sonia Blair Orwell, who had them, and they were sold to what was some kind of, turned out to be pre-CIA before it developed into the CIA. But I think that funding came out of the Marshall Plan, for the redevelopment of Europe. And it's all sort of mutated. And anyway, Louis de Rochemont had the rights and asked my parents if they could turn it into something. And they spent a year doing the pre-production and doing the storyboard. And then another 3 years making the film. So that's interesting. His friend George, I mean, he could have been
But it
talking
was so
about a
detailed.
different... Was it really?
It was so detailed that
Yeah.
I just assumed that it was,
Yeah,
that he
well,
just remembered it and thought it had just happened.
Yes.
Maybe
Well, he
he
might
transposed
have.
it from somewhere.
Because he used to welcome the nurses. The nurse would come in the morning and he'd open the door and say, "Hello, hello, welcome, welcome," and he'd think he was in a festival.
I think I was there for about a week and I
Really?
never remembered who I was. Because
So
it was
did you
almost like his
know,
best friend, his best new friend every
Yes.
day.
So how did you come in? Did Andy Mundell
I
ask
was
you?
under them down
Oh,
there.
right, okay. So what's your name?
Jed, Hen.
Oh, you're Jed. Oh, hi. Yes, because you did that.
Don't remind me.
Yes.
It was. I just worked on it. You wrote the
Right.
I didn't direct it or create it.
Okay.
it
Yes,
wasn't
because
his best
Andy
piece,
sort of.
I'm sorry, you're going to have to help
Yes.
us out. You're going to have to say what the film was.
Yes, tell us about it.
Well, it was. I mean, Godfrey did the British,
UK
the UK one,
Yeah.
and I was an animator on the German one.
Christoph
Christoph
Simon.
Simon. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the only two which were done, isn't it?
And I think the Irish one was done.
The
Oh, yeah,
Irish
which
one
one
was
was-
done.
There's one which was
I think the Spanish one was done as well.
Yes.
I had to talk. I think I had to talk about it somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and people in the audience kept firing out, "No, the Spanish one was done as well." So I think more were made.
no,
Yes,
because you
but
originally said
they
the only
took
Bob
their
one
own
was done, and then
rights.
somebody else who worked on the German one. I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
It was Christoph Simon.
Christoph
No,
Simon.
but no, there's a
Petra
woman who worked on it who
Dolman
was
did
here who
one.
said
It's
no.
actually here.
Who said no? You
Oh,
said
okay.
Bob's one was the only one that's done this, and some of them said no, these ones were
Yeah.
done as well.
But Bob's is the only one that I show because
I don't blame him.
I wasn't actually mad about the others, so I just.
I wasn't
kept
bad about
quiet.
the others. I just
Oh,
got
good.
paid for
I'm so
working.
glad.
The thing is, know
I
your
actually thought it was a bit.
to me, know your Europeans is just that one, because I mean that works on its own. It doesn't need anything. I mean, I suppose they all would have
Well,
worked
they
on their
all
own.
would have worked on their own, but Bob's was the only one that got finished that was really good.
Thanks.
Yeah. So there you go.
I'd just like to say that Stan Hayward, who's been our guest on a few occasions, worked with John, and you could see fragments of a film that he wrote called The Question in the documentary, and he wrote Henry's Cat, so that sort of brings it all round and sort of interweaves it all, which is very, very nice. Anyone else got a question for Vivien? Okay.
Yeah.
Just one small question. You say that you have an archive of all this work. Why isn't that archive, or do you not want to have it included in the British National Film Archive?
It is now. A couple of years ago I was quite ill and realised that I wasn't invincible and I wasn't going to live forever. So I thought I'd better give it to the BFI. I'd avoided that previously because everyone I talked to when my father died said, don't, whatever you do, give it to the BFI. Because, what did they call it? Something very rude.
Well, I've thought of lots of things it stands
Anyway,
for.
yes, but the thing is, it is a black hole, and it is, in the past anyway, it's been difficult to get the work out.
Oh, right.
But I'm pleased that I donated it to them, because they've been very helpful. There's a wonderful guy who has been here, Jez Stewart,
Yes.
who's fantastic, and he's been, I don't know what you call it, inputting it. There's a new database. He's really wonderful and very, very helpful. And I mean, in the end, what's going to happen to that work? It has to go to the National Archive. I can't look after it. I've done what I can. I've had Animal Farm restored. I've used any money that I've made, which isn't a lot, on distribution to restore the films. I've had them digitally remastered.
What, at your own expense rather than having
Yes.
BFI?
Yes.
BFI didn't...
But the trouble is, everything I've had done, thinking I was saving the films, you know, they're all on Digibeta, about 50 of them, and they've all been regraded and la la la. Well, blow me, that's almost defunct, isn't it? Now it's got to be HD, it's got to be whatever those things are, encrypted, it's got to be Blu-ray, it's got to be...
It's time for the BFI to pay for it, really.
Yes, and so this is totally beyond my energy.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I'm sure the BFI...
some or all of you will come on the 30th to the Barbican, Cinema 1, 7 o'clock. Should be good.
Is it an event that one can just turn up for, or is it a good
You
idea to
can- you
book
can-
in advance?
If you look on their website, it's up under the Barhouse events. It's on their website, or you can tap into mine, Halas and
Perhaps we could do a school trip, as it were, if people are interested. We could all go as a group and support Vivien and John. So that's May the 30th. I'll put that on the digest. When I do the write-up tonight, I'll send all that out, all the details. And are there any other forthcoming Halas and Batchelor
Well,
events?
there's going to be one in Melbourne, but I don't expect any of
School
you
trip
to
to
go.
Melbourne.
School trip to Melbourne,
I
yes.
don't expect you to go to Melbourne. There'll be one in Varna in Bulgaria on the Black Sea, where they want to do a proper retrospective and show all the films, well, all Animal Farm shorts and documentary. And then there'll be Bradford, the Bath, in November, where they'll do a retrospective. And
Well, that could be a marvellous one to go to because of Bradford Animation
yes,
Festival.
well, that's
Such
a good thing to go to anyway.
Yeah.
I don't have any of you been to Bradford. It's in the Media Museum, which is fabulous anyway.
Which is fantastic. It's worth
brilliant.
visiting just for itself.
I mean, for kind of London-centred people think, oh my God, it's so far. And it is. And it is cold and it is windy, but it's worth it. because the museum's great, and there are super photographic exhibitions there as well.
Plus, while you're up there, you should go and visit Saltaire,
Oh,
the sort of the 19th century utopian industrial town, and an old friend of David Hockney's had a gallery there and would curate shows of David Hockney's work. And yeah, go and see the two together. Go to the Cinema Museum and to Saltaire in Bradford on a yes.
Yes, and treat yourself to a few curries.
Yes.
It's a land of authentic curry.
Absolutely.
So there's all of that, and there's the Hungarian Cultural Centre promised something, but I don't hold my breath because they've got no funding left. So they might do something in Maiden Lane, just in the centre.
And might you be doing? Well, I know you've got a small DVD release, but is there an opportunity? Is there an opportunity for interested people to buy a collection of shorts? Obviously, Animal Farm you can get in HMV, but have you got a?
There is a DVD that's put out supposedly by Asifa that they were talking about. But I think that I should do it myself as well. It's John Halas's favourite short films. So there's a compilation of the films he thought were the best, and also Martin's little mini dog.
Well, it's not
that kind of is, well, it might be a big dog soon.
a big dog. Yes.
Yes,
And
who knows what might happen.
Will people be able to buy this at the event at the Barbican?
I'm hoping so, yes.
And will your book be on sale? Vivien won't say this, but she's written a marvellous book with Paul Wells, a very, very readable book about her parents' legacy.
Yes,
is that in the
yes,
bookshop?
you remind me to do it.
I think the last time I saw it was in the bookshop down there.
Was it really? I've seen Claire Kitson's book, but not mine.
Vivien's book has got a DVD in the back as
Yes.
well, so it really is well
Bob's
worth
film
getting.
on it.
That's true, yes,
It
yes.
has. So it's
I'll get
worth
that in
buying. Just, I mean, it's really not expensive, and there's a DVD, and there's Bob's.
And you'd be happy to sign copies for anyone, any members of London Animation Club who asks?
Yes.
Excellent, that's good.
I'm glad you've reminded me of all this stuff.
Well, I mean, it's there, it's all an asset, you know. I personally find it pretty frustrating that so many marvellous films are not available in a tangible form, on reasonable quality. You can find sort of copies of VHSs on YouTube and so on, but I think it's very important that you can actually get good quality or authorised editions of these films, and it's a shame that, you know, films by a lot, you know, less well-known filmmakers are not available as well. I think it's shocking that your father's work isn't more readily available, but it would be nice if...
Well, there's a good DVD in France that you can buy online called Halas and Bachelor, Le Best of So British. And they say all sorts of flattering things that I would never dare say, but they're French, so they can do it. And it's all in, you know, in English as well as French. So that's a really nice one. So there you are. On to the next person.
Well, if there are any more questions?
Yes, one final question.
Yes.
I have a couple of films in the National Film Archive because I'm a pretty old filmmaker, and I certainly remember Halas and Bachelor in the 1960s, admittedly. But the BFI with the National Film Archive have quite a lot of my work on Beta SB, and when I ask them to transfer it to a computer file, they do it. So I don't see any reason why, with your digibetas, why you shouldn't be able to say to them, look, you've got the kit to do this, can you make me a computer file for this?
They charge for access.
No.
They
Actually,
no.
If you know the
I've got
right
nothing.
person, they're very nice.
Yeah, well, talk to William Fowler.
Oh, I don't know him.
He's a lovely guy.
Well, Jez Stewart is my man, and he is absolutely marvellous. And if I ask him, he sends me things through the post. And I have got most things on DVD. Martin's got most things we have a special Halas and Bachelor hard drive.
Vivien gets the short films telecinied onto DVD, directly onto playable DVD, which I then rip, and then back up on this drive. So everything's well. Whenever you have a new film telecinied, I back it up now.
Well, they are very helpful if you know the right person, where they're not very good, because if you don't give them a big lead time, and for instance, on the 30th, I wanted to show The Owl and the Pussycat in 3D. Now, I showed this 20 years ago when my mother died. We had a kind of commemorative film show at the NFT, and no problem, we showed the left right eye thing, and there was the owl and the pussycat in 3D. And I subsequently asked to show it again, and no, it was about when MoMI closed. Oh, we don't have any of that. I said, yes you do. No, we don't. Yes you do. So a couple of years ago, I'm in the corridors of the BFI, and somebody bounces up and says, we have the left right eye films, we found them. I said, good, jolly good, that's terrific. So then I wanted to show it on the 30th because I think that would be fun. Well, blow me, technology has moved on and we can't show those anymore because they don't have a silver screen at Barbican, they don't have a silver screen at Bradford. I found the glasses at Bradford, but nobody. Well, they're digitised, you can do that.
Yeah, you need to get digitised into the new 3D
yes,
format.
well they're doing that at the BFI, but they don't have the right screen to show
What
it.
about the Cinema Museum in Kennington, the Ronald Grant Archive?
Oh, do you think they could do it?
They might well, because they've got all sorts of interesting bits of film equipment.
Oh, I must
And in
be
fact, you
really-
might even want to talk to them about doing an evening there.
Yes,
I think they would be.
remind me.
Yeah, I can put you in touch. There's a fellow there called Martin who I know. I can put you in touch
To
with.
you.
He runs round.
I live many different lives.
Yeah,
I think Ronald Film Archive would be the place
yes.
to try to source the right projector, because I have
But
seen.
it's the screen, I think, that they have the problem with.
Right.
They need a silver screen.
Which hardly anyone's going to have now for. Hardly everyone. I mean, most cinemas now are going to be set up for digital 3D, not film.
But then you get some hardcore
Yeah,
film archive
if you
types.
have to have a separate screen.
Even so, I wouldn't be
Really?
surprised if Ronald
Okay.
Grant has got. They probably have a nitrate safe there. They'll
True.
they're the sort of place that if anywhere would have one, they would be the one.
Wow, that would be great.
Well, thanks very much to Vivien for a great Q&A and introduction, and thank you for coming all this way to present the film. Ladies and gentlemen, Vivien Halas.